On January 16, 1988, a woman stood backstage at Rio de Janeiro's Maracanã Stadium, feeling the ground beneath her feet vibrate with a force she had never experienced before. And in that moment, Tina Turner realized she was about to step into something far bigger than any concert she had ever performed. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more amazing moments like this one. The air was thick with humidity, typical of a Brazilian summer evening, and the smell of sweat, perfume, and anticipation mixed together in a way that made the atmosphere almost tangible, almost alive. Tina had performed in front of massive crowds before, had stood on stages across the world, had felt the rush of thousands of voices singing her songs back to her, but nothing in her decades-long career had prepared her for what waited beyond the curtain that night. The production team had briefed her on the numbers, told her that the stadium was packed beyond capacity, that people had climbed onto the roof of the structure itself, that the streets surrounding the venue were flooded with fans who couldn't get inside but refused to leave, determined to hear even a fraction of the show through the stadium walls. She had nodded, smiled, thanked them for the information, but numbers were just numbers until you saw them with your own eyes, until you felt the weight of that many human beings all focused on one single point. As Tina prepared in her dressing room, her team worked around her with practiced efficiency, adjusting her costume, checking her microphone, running through the set list one final time, and she sat quietly, centering herself the way she had learned to do over the years through meditation and discipline. Her journey to this moment had been long and painful, marked by struggles that would have broken most people, and the fact that she was here at all was a testament to her strength and refusal to be defeated. She had left an abusive marriage, had rebuilt her career from nothing, had fought against an industry that tried to tell her she was too old, had proven every doubter wrong through sheer force of will and talent. The woman who would step onto that stage was not the same woman who had started out decades earlier, not the same person who had once allowed herself to be diminished and controlled. This Tina Turner was powerful, independent, in complete command of herself and her artistry, and she had earned every bit of the success that had brought her to this historic night in Rio. The opening acts had finished. The crew had set the stage, and now it was time. Tina walked through the backstage corridors, her heels clicking on the concrete floor, her band members falling into step beside her, all of them professionals who had been with her through countless shows, but who also seemed to feel that tonight was different. They reached the stage entrance and paused, and in that brief moment of stillness, Tina heard it, truly heard it for the first time. The sound was unlike anything she had encountered. A roar that seemed to come from the earth itself, a collective voice of 180,000 people, creating a wall of noise that hit her like a physical force. She took a breath, felt her heart pound in her chest, and then stepped forward into the lights. The instant she appeared, the crowd erupted with such intensity that the sound system struggled to compete, and Tina walked to the front of the stage, microphone in hand, her signature dress catching the lights and sending sparkles across the massive venue. She looked out, and what she saw stopped her completely. The stadium stretched impossibly far in every direction, tier upon tier of human beings packed together so tightly that it seemed like a single living organism, and beyond the official seating areas, people clung to support beams, perched on the roof, filled every conceivable space. The sight was overwhelming, beautiful, and terrifying all at once, and Tina felt her throat tighten with emotion. She had dreamed of moments like this when she was at her lowest, when she had nothing, when she was sleeping in a car and wondering if she would ever perform again, and now here it was, real and undeniable, and more than she had ever imagined possible. The band began the opening notes of the first song, but Tina raised her hand, signaling them to stop, and the music died away, leaving only the roar of the crowd. She stood there, microphone at her side, just looking, just taking it in, and the audience sensed that something unscripted was happening, that they were witnessing a genuine human moment rather than a rehearsed performance. Tears formed in Tina's eyes, visible on the massive video screens that flanked the stage, and 180,000 people fell gradually quiet, waiting, giving her the space she needed. The silence that descended was almost as powerful as the noise had been, a collective holding of breath, a shared recognition that this was a sacred moment. Tina slowly raised the microphone to her lips, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke, telling the crowd in simple words that she had never seen anything like this, that she was overwhelmed, that she needed a moment to collect herself because the magnitude of what she was seeing had shaken her to her core. Her words were honest and unpolished, devoid of the professional sheen that usually characterized performer banter, and the audience responded with a wave of affection and understanding that swept through the stadium like wind across water. They began to chant her name, not aggressively but supportively, a rhythmic affirmation that they were with her, that they understood, that they too recognized the historical weight of the moment. The production crew backstage watched nervously, wondering if something had gone wrong, if there was a technical problem or if Tina was unwell, but her manager, who knew her better than anyone, smiled and shook his head, understanding that what was happening was exactly what needed to happen. This was real, this was human, and it was making the concert something more than just a performance. Tina wiped her eyes, laughed at herself a little, and the sound of her laughter echoed through the speakers, breaking the tension and allowing the crowd to laugh with her. A moment of shared joy that bonded performer and audience in a way that no perfectly executed song ever could. She began to speak again, her voice stronger now, telling the people of Brazil how much this meant to her, how she had fought to be here, how every person in that stadium represented a dream fulfilled. She talked about her struggles without going into painful detail, acknowledging the darkness of her past while focusing on the light of the present, and her words resonated deeply with people who had their own struggles, their own fights, their own reasons for being there that night. Brazil in 1988 was a country emerging from decades of military dictatorship, finding its voice again, learning to celebrate and express itself freely. And the massive turnout for Tina's concert was about more than just music. It was about freedom, about claiming space, about showing the world that Brazilian people were ready to embrace life and art on their own terms. When Tina finally signaled to the band to begin again, the opening chords of her first song rang out across the Maracanã, and the crowd exploded with renewed energy, their voices joining hers in a sonic wave that seemed to shake the very air. She moved across the stage with fierce energy, her legs powerful and athletic, her voice raw and emotional, every note infused with the gratitude and joy she felt. The setlist included all her biggest hits, songs that had defined her comeback and established her as one of the greatest performers of her generation, and each one landed with perfect precision, driving the audience into increasingly ecstatic states of celebration. Between songs, Tina continued to acknowledge the unprecedented nature of the evening, speaking directly to the audience with genuine warmth and making it clear that she saw them, that she appreciated them, that this was a collaboration rather than a one-sided performance. The video screens captured close-ups of audience members crying, singing, dancing with complete abandon, and those images fed back into the collective energy, creating a feedback loop of emotion that elevated everyone present. Professional photographers and camera operators worked frantically to document the event, knowing they were witnessing something that would be talked about for decades, that this was one of those rare moments when everything aligned perfectly to create something transcendent. As the concert progressed, word spread beyond the stadium walls through the limited communication technology available in 1988, with people calling friends and family from payphones, telling them to turn on their radios, to come outside and hear the sound carrying across the city. Local radio stations interrupted their regular programming to broadcast live from the venue, and their announcers struggled to find words adequate to describe what was happening, eventually giving up and simply letting the music and crowd noise speak for itself. The concert was being recorded for a potential live album, and the engineers managing the equipment kept adjusting levels, trying to capture the impossible scale of the sound without distorting it into noise, walking a technical tightrope that required constant vigilance and expertise. Midway through the performance, during one of her most powerful ballads, Tina stood center stage with a single spotlight on her. The rest of the stadium darkened except for the thousands of lighters that audience members held aloft, creating a field of flickering lights that stretched to the horizon. She sang with everything she had, her voice carrying the weight of every hardship she had endured, every time she had been told no, every moment she had wanted to quit, but had chosen to keep going instead. The emotional intensity was almost unbearable, and yet no one looked away, no one spoke. Everyone simply absorbed the raw honesty of the performance and gave it back in the form of absolute attention and respect. When the song ended, the silence lasted for several seconds before the applause began, starting as a rumble and building to a thunderous crescendo that lasted for minutes. Tina stood with tears streaming down her face, making no attempt to hide her emotions, and the audience loved her more for it, appreciated her humanity, her willingness to be vulnerable in front of so many people. The moment became emblematic of what made Tina Turner special as a performer, her ability to combine fierce strength with genuine emotion, to be powerful and vulnerable simultaneously, to show that these qualities were not contradictory, but complementary. As the concert moved into its final hour, the energy somehow intensified rather than flagging, with Tina delivering each song with undiminished power and the audience responding in kind. She performed her cover of Proud Mary, the song that had become her signature, and the entire stadium seemed to move as one organism, 180,000 people dancing together, singing together, experiencing pure collective joy. The stage crew watched from the wings with amazement, several of them veterans of countless concerts who had never seen anything approach this level of connection between performer and audience. The final song approached, and Tina introduced it with words of gratitude, thanking Brazil, thanking Rio, thanking every single person who had made the journey to be there that night. She told them this was a night she would never forget, that they had given her a gift beyond measure, and that she hoped the music had meant as much to them as their presence meant to her. The band launched into the closing number, and Tina gave everything she had left, running across the stage, engaging with her dancers, pointing to different sections of the crowd and acknowledging them individually, despite the impossible scale of the venue. When the final note rang out, Tina stood at the edge of the stage with her arms raised, and the applause that greeted her was like nothing anyone present had ever heard, a sound so loud and sustained that it seemed impossible that human throats and hands could create it. She bowed deeply, stayed on stage for several curtain calls, kept returning even as her crew tried to usher her off, unable to tear herself away from the moment, from the connection, from the pure love that flowed between her and the audience. Eventually she did leave the stage, but only after spending far longer than was typical, her reluctance visible and touching to everyone watching. Backstage, Tina collapsed into a chair, physically and emotionally exhausted, and her team surrounded her with water and towels and congratulations, all of them knowing they had just been part of something extraordinary. The local promoters arrived with flowers and champagne, speaking in rapid Portuguese that translators struggled to keep up with, their excitement and pride evident in every gesture. They told Tina that she had set a record, that no one had ever drawn such a crowd in South America, that she had made history, and she accepted their praise graciously, while still seeming slightly dazed by the magnitude of what had occurred. In the days and weeks that followed, news of the Maracanã concert spread globally, with media outlets running stories about the record-breaking crowd and the emotional moment when Tina had stopped the show to collect herself. Video footage and photographs circulated, becoming iconic images that would define her legacy as a live performer. The concert was officially recognized by Guinness World Records as one of the largest paying audiences ever assembled for a solo artist, cementing its place in music history. More importantly, it became a defining moment in Tina Turner's narrative of survival and triumph, proof that she had not only overcome her past, but had reached heights that few artists ever achieve. The woman who had once been controlled and diminished had stood before 180,000 people and shown them her true self, vulnerable and powerful in equal measure, and in doing so had created a moment that transcended entertainment and became something deeper, something that spoke to the human capacity for resilience, connection, and joy. The night at Maracana was not just a concert, but a celebration of survival, a testament to what becomes possible when talent meets determination, and a reminder that sometimes the most powerful moments are not the ones we plan, but the ones we allow ourselves to experience authentically and without pretense.